start the session now. It's time up. So, let me just give a small intro. So yesterday's video, you can see that it's on our website, bigdatahandson.com. You can see in our homepage itself, it's the part 3 is here. So if you find part 4, you can just go to meetup videos and you can see the part 4 video. So yesterday session is here. So you can see support vector machine part 4 video is here. So you can see part 4 video here. So like this, we'll be posting daily videos here. So you can see that. So second thing, like today, we are going to see ANN. Right, Irfan? We are going to see ANN, right?
Yes.
Okay. And tomorrow we'll be seeing CNN. It's a convolutional neural networks. So after that is any doubts. So the most important topics are these two under deep learning. So here until yesterday, we were seeing machine learning. From today, we will go with deep learning. Any doubts, you can just ping us. Like our number, it's 978 988 424. Oh, so you can this is our number. It's 978 988 424. You can see at the top. And also you have our mail ID support@bigdatahandson.com. Like you can just mail us as well. So now we shall start the session. Irfan, you can continue.
Today we are going to see deep learning. So what is deep learning? Deep learning is a part of subset of machine learning, and machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Okay, and deep learning acts like our human brain. In human brain we have neural networks. So like that neural network, we have artificially created neural networks which we will use in deep learning. Okay.
Irfan, 1 second. One of our chief architect, by 7:15, she will be joining the call, and she's our chief architect. That is, she's our head Indumati ma'am. So she would be joining the call at 7:15. Whatever doubts you have in deep learning, everything will be cleared by Irfan. But still, more insights would be given by Indumati ma'am as well. She would be joining the call by 7:15, something like that. Irfan, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and what is difference between deep learning and machine learning? In machine learning, usually we choose to you have given a data. In that data, we will manually choose which features are nothing but the columns, which columns we are using to build our model, and forget the output. Okay. And here in deep learning, we don't need to select the features. It will automatically select itself and build the model. Okay. And one more thing, uh, in machine learning we need to manually select the features and build the model. Then why we need machine learning? We can choose deep learning. No, the one thing is, in machine learning in deep learning, you will be given large amount of data. If you have a large amount of data, you can use deep learning. In that large amount of data also you can use in machine learning, but the efficiency is not good. If you have small amount of data, you can use machine learning, and small amount of data you can also use in deep learning, but the efficiency is not good for small amount in deep learning. Okay. And for practical applications of deep learning, we are using banking. In banking, we have a let's say an ATM. In ATM, we have the cameras footage, and we will be detecting the abnormal activities. And insurance and healthcare also, we are using healthcare, like we have corona, no, now it's going on. So we have built a model that will detect whether a person has corona or not using the scan, sorry, the x-ray. We are using the CNN model, and we are predicting whether the person has the corona or not with the x-ray. And we have automotive car industry, we are using deep learning. And for government also, we are using cyber attacks. So detecting the cyber attacks, we are using deep learning. And like I said before, deep learning acts like a human brain. In human brain, we have neurons. That neurons, we are creating a algorithm which acts like a neuron. Like in neurons, we have dendrites, that is our inputs. Like here you can see, that is our inputs. And the cell body is our here is the cell body, which will perform some process. And after that, we have the output. This output can be given to other neuron also. Okay, so we are just creating an artificial neural network, like our neurons in our brain. In that cell body, we are doing some process. We will see that step by step. And this is the this all these things is doing in that cell body. That is doing add bias. Add bias is nothing but the, if you have a equation called y equal to mx plus c, the c is the bias here. And for, let's say for we have data that has some features, this columns: item visibility, item type, output location type, and item price. We have these columns, and these columns are the input for our neural networks. So every columns has a neurons. These neurons will given to the will perform some process and give you a output. And these neurons will assign a weightage. Every neurons has a weightage. Weightage is nothing but the m on the slope, y equal to mx plus c. In that equation, we have m is nothing but the coefficient. That means for one amount of unit of change in x, how the y is changing, that is our coefficient. Using that coefficient, we will find which feature has the more influence on our dependent variable in y. That is our dependent variable, no. So it will assign some weights for each and every features. and and we can have a hidden layer is nothing but the second layer, which will the input will given to the hidden layer. And this hidden layer, we can also perform some tasks, and this hidden layer will give you the will give the output. Okay, so in that input layer, for the hidden layer, we can have uh, various amount of combinations. Like we can give item visibility and outlet location, we can see here. So this neuron contains item visibility and outlet location. Like that, we can have uh, so like 2 power n combinations. Okay, this all these neurons, all these features are given to the hidden layer as much as possible. Combinations we will give, and this hidden layer perform some tasks and give us a output. And it's not mandatory to have only one hidden layer. We can add multiple hidden layers also. So like I said before, that is the combinations you can see here. So it can have three features, or we can have two features. like that. So it is adding some combinations here, and it is giving me output as a y is at output. What is the sales of the product according to these features. Okay, this how the neural network is working. The steps involved in the neural network. First, I said before, initializing weights. So in that you can see here every features are given a weightage. That is our initialization of weights and bias, like I said before, C. No, and this data will given to the neural network. This is a neural network, and this neural network performs some tasks and it will give you output. So in that output we will calculate error. Error is nothing but the if you have true value and the predicted value, difference between the true and predicted value, that is our error. So the error again will give to the neural network as a feedback, and it will adjust some weights. That is the back propagation here. It will adjust the weight, and after that it will give you the output, and the loop will go on till you are getting the minimal error. Okay, and this is the process. Like we are giving an input, it giving me an output, and this output will match to the true actual value, and it will give you some error, and the error will give you to the uh, and we will adjust some weight. It's nothing but the dw2 and dw1. We will adjust the weights, and after that we will give to the input again, so the loop will go on. And popular libraries used for deep learning, here Keras, TensorFlow and PyTorch. Keras is used in a backend of TensorFlow. It uses TensorFlow and Theano as backend, and it is normally used in testing whether our model is working good or not. So in production we will use TensorFlow, and in TensorFlow we need to use lot. We need to write lot code. Uh, for that we can use PyTorch. PyTorch is very easy, and it has efficiency like TensorFlow also. Okay, now PyTorch is becoming very popular, so you can also learn PyTorch also. In this tutorial I am going to use the Keras only. Okay, and for demo I have written a program here. So I'm using the data set churn modeling. Churn modeling is nothing but uh, in that sailing we are going to predict whether the person uh, will exited or not. Like we are going to predict here using this features, estimated salary, all these things. And here we don't want the row number, customer ID and surname. So we can use from this column to estimated salary, we can use as a independent variable, and exited as a dependent variable. That I splitted that. So I have imported the data set, and I'm choosing the x and y variables, and after that I'm going label encoder. That is because it has some categorical features. So I'm like male female, like, and we have some geography like France, Spain, the countries. So I'm just encoding that. I'm converting the categorical features into the binaries. That's why I'm did here. and and also I'm just splitting the data set into training and testing. And the next I'm standardizing the scale. It's because the scale is different scales we have. So age, tensor, balance, number of products. So this different scales. So I'm just standardizing the scale, and after that we are going to build the model. Like I said before, I'm going to use the Keras module for the deep learning, and in here we are using the sequential class for building the neural network. In that neural network, we are first adding the input layer. So remember that here we are having the input layer first. So this is our input layer. So we have number of features. We will assign it here input dimensional. In input dimensional, we will specify how many features are there. Like in here, in this data set, we have 11 columns for the x the independent variable. We are giving it to the neural network as an input. So we need to specify the dimensional, that is how many features we are going to give. And after this layer, we will get 6 output layers. So in this we will get 6 output layers. So it can have anything, not 6 only, you can have anything. But how you will choose how many number of neurons we will use in that layer, hidden layer. So it can be half of our input dimensional. It can half of the input dimensional, the units you can. And you can increase that by trial and error. You can try, and if you are getting some small uh, accuracy, you can just increase the neurons. And I'm adding one more hidden layer. This is the hidden layer here. The hidden layer I'm just adding, and after that we have an output layer. This is our output layer. So unit 1 means we have only one output only. So that is our last layer. So this is a simple neural network: input and one hidden layer and output layer. So and here you can see here we have kernel initializer uniform as uniform. What is kernel initializer? Kernel initializer is nothing but the weight initialization. So remember, first in the step we are just initializing the weight. Okay, that's what in here we are doing. So we are just randomly initializing our weights. Like we can uh, a- apply some weights for two. For each and every features we will assign the weight as 2 uniformly. That we are assigning uniform, no. So uniformly it will assign the weights for all the features, and after that it will adjust the weights. And what is vanishing gradient is you can't have very small number of weights. If you have very small weight, uh, the loss function, if you updating the weight, it will go slower. Okay, it will update very slowly, so it will may consume more time. So it you don't have a very small number of weight. And exploding gradient is if you assign very large amount of weight, so the exact opposite of vanishing gradient. Okay, so we are doing that randomly. We are assigning some weights for the features uniformly. So that is we are assigning that uniform. And we have a popular weight initialization, that is Savior initialization. The Savior initialization used in RNN. RNN is something but the recurrent neural network. In deep learning we have 3 type of neural networks. one is artificial neural networks, and another one is convolutional neural networks, and the third one is recurrent neural network. Artificial neural networks is a basic one. We are seeing that's why we are using this basic one. And convolutional neural network is for image processing. When you want to process some images, you can use convolutional neural networks. And recurrent neural networks is for when you have to remember the past values, you can use the RNN, recurrent neural network. And the Savior initialization used in RNN. And also we have various weight initialization. You can see in the documentation of TensorFlow, you will find uh, initialization, various initializations. And here you can see here we are giving activation equal to relu. What does this mean? Activation is nothing but the it determines the output of the neural network. In here, if you have an output for this neural network, let's say you having this neuron, what would be the output of this neuron? It determines using that activation. If you don't have the activation function, it looks like a simple linear model. That is not makes any sense of this deep learning. Okay, so we are using various activation functions like sigmoid we are seen in logistic regression, no? So it puts in a range like 0 to 1. In between that, so if that is greater than the, it uses a threshold value. If that is greater than the 0.5, let's say, that category is 1. And if that less than 0.5, it's a different category. So like that, we have some different activation functions. So you can see here, if you have a binary classifier that is predicts whether image in unicorn or not, you can use activation functions. After this process of the neuron, the output will determine the activation function. Okay. And why do we need the activation function? Like I said before, add ability to learn something complex and complicated. If you don't have the activation functions, it's as a linear regression model only. This has no limited power. It has some limited power only for linear regression. So without activation function, our neural network would be not able to learn and model other complicated data. It will not it will not learn like images and audio, speech, etc. And we have various activation functions like threshold function. It will determine 0 or not, so 0 or 1. And we have relu is like if you have a negative value, it will assign is a 0. And if you have a positive value, it will assign that positive value only. So the relu will not accept the negative values. Okay, like you can see here, we are using the relu for the input and the hidden layers. And the output we have sigmoid is because we are just going to predict whether the person stay with me or exited. So we are just is binary, no? So we can use sigmoid. So that's why I'm using the activation as sigmoid for the output layer. Okay. And you can see here we can have a sigmoid like I said before, 0. It will determine in the range of 0 and 1. And we have tangent tan h is used in RNN. It is the same as sigmoid, but the range of tan h is -1 to +1. And we have another activation function, that is softmax. Softmax, what will do, it will put the output which we are getting into a range 0 to 1. This is same as a sigmoid function. Okay. After this creating the neural networks, we are compiling it. We are compiling the neural network, and we are giving optimizer equal to Adam. We will see that what is optimizer, and we have loss. Loss is nothing but our error, uh, uh, the difference between our actual and the predicted value. That is our loss. So what it will do, if you have a loss, it will give that loss into optimizer. It will optimize the loss, and it's try to uh, minimize the error. Okay, it will try to minimize the error using that optimizer. You can do that. First we will see the loss function. Loss function, like I said, it's the difference between the actual and the predicted. That is our error. If this error will given to the neural network as a feedback. We have a mean squared error. Mean squared error we have used in linear regression. That is yi minus y bar I whole square. That is our mean squared error. And we have another also, which is cross entropy loss function. And in our program we are using binary cross entropy. Binary cross entropy is we have, when you have binary outcome like ones and zeros, you can use binary cross entropy. If you have more than two categories, you can use categorical cross entropy. Okay. That is our loss function. We'll use it in getting that error. And like I said before, this error will given to the optimizer. What that optimizer will do? Optimizer will try to adjust the weight and minimize the error and find the minimal error. So it's just uh, adjusting the weight, initial weight we have, and adjusting the weight after that, uh, unless you will get the minimal error. Okay. In an optimizer we have like for gradient descent, stochastic gradient descent, Adam, and RMS prop. We will see the four optimizer. The first is the basic one, that is gradient descent. The gradient, what it will do, when you have a prop like this, so the distribution of data like this, so it will find the minimal error, like adjusting the weight it is going on. Sometimes it will go to the opposite side also. So after this it will find the minimal error here. So and it will terminate the optimizer. So we got that minimal error, no, so it will exit from the optimizer. So that is the gradient descent. And for your data set of distribution of your data will not like always it's not like the this soft uh, prop. It can be like this also. So if you have like this distribution, what the gradient will do, in this it will find the best low error, but in here it will find the error as this one, but it's not the best error, best loss, minimal error. This is our minimal error here, but it is giving me the this error. So like this distribution of data, uh, the gradient descent will not work. The stochastic gradient descent will work. So the basic difference between the stochastic gradient descent and gradient descent is, gradient descent will fetch the all the data in one time and it will calculate the minimal error. But in stochastic gradient, it will fetch uh, one by one rows, and it will find the minimal error. But for this, it will slow, but the efficiency is good. And for gradient descent and stochastic gradient, we have another one, RMS probe. RMS probe is very good. That is, if you have a deep probe like this, so if you use the gradient descent, it will take more than a day, or week. It will take more time to reach the minimal error. It's because it is very deep, and gradient descent will adjust the weight a smaller amount of adjust the weight small. And for solving this, we have RMS probe. What it will do, initially it will give a momentum for the weight adjusting. So initially it will adjust the weight a big learning rate. And if you follow this big learning rate, you may miss the uh, best loss. So RMS what it will do, initially it will go faster, and when you are reaching the best minimal, it will go slower. It will learning rate will be small. So like that, you will reach the uh, uh, best minimal error. And we have another one, Adam. Adam is the combinations of stochastic gradient descent and RMS probe with the momentum. Okay, and Adam, we are using Adam, I think. Yeah, we are our optimizer is Adam only, and we are assigning loss as a cross entropy, and we have metrics as accuracy. Metrics as accuracy means how much accuracy we are getting, our model is predicting. That is our accuracy here. And epoch, we will see that. So after this compiling our neural network, we are we are fitting our neural network into our training data set. So classify.fit extend and ytrain, and we have assigning batch size 10 and epochs is 10. So what is that epochs and batch size? So epochs is the one iteration has all the entire data set. So one epoch will have all the entire data. So it will separate into batches, is because we cannot give like 1 million data into our neural network at a time. Okay, what it will do, it will split it into a batches, number of batches, and the number of batches has some iterations. The iteration is denoted as like this. So if you have 10,000 images, so we are doing batch size of 200, so that iteration will be 50. So this is a process of one epoch. It's not mandatory to have only one epoch. It's because for each and every epoch, it is trying to adjust our weights to get the minimal error. No, so we can use 10 epochs, 20 epochs, 100 epochs also you can use according to your data. Okay, and the last one, we are just predicting our test data. And this one I will tell you that is because uh, in that output layer, we are assigning the activation as a sigmoid. So sigmoid will give you in a range of 0 to 1. So we are using the threshold value as 0.5. If that is greater than the 0.5, that is the category 1. And if that is less than 0.5, that is category 0. So like that, you are just predicting. Our classifier will only give integers like 0 0.8, 0.3, like that. And after that, we are classifying whether that is greater than 0.5 or less than 0.5. And also we are seeing the confusion matrix. And let's try to run this. So you can see here epochs is going on, like the first epoch. In that first epoch we are getting accuracy as 0.79, and the second epoch 0.79, and the fourth epoch we are getting 0.8. It is just adjusting the weight and getting that accuracy more. If you have more epochs, if you will assign more epochs, you may get more accuracy. So in that last we got accuracy as 0.8341. So let's see the confusion matrix here. In that confusion matrix you can see here 1554 plus 130 are correct predictions, and 275 plus 41 are incorrect predictions. If you increase the epochs you may get more accuracy, I think. Run this as 20. Nearly we are going towards 84. So we got 84. No, it is stick on to the 83. Oh, it is sticking on to the 83. So we got 8357. Like that you can do some trial and error, and you can get some more accuracy. And it's not mandatory to have only one layer. We can add another layer also. I'm trying to add another hidden layer. So it's the second hidden layer. I'm added second hidden layer. Let's try to run one more time. So this also is getting 83 for 83 only. Like that you can try to change, and you can get more accuracy also. So any doubts some from this? Any doubts?
Any doubts you have?
Irfan,
Yes.
this is France here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
You told that that number of neurons we can select from the input layer 6, right? Half of it.
Yes.
So the same way, is there any formula for selecting how many hidden layers we can choose?
No, it comes in trial and error only.
Oh, okay. Hidden layers also. How many hidden layers?
Yes.
Okay.
Like that, I'm adding the second layer. That also is not getting more accuracy. So
Okay.
we can change the. I think we can change the neurons. I think. Let's try to change that. And also you can add multiple hidden layers also.
Okay.
So you can see that. So in that first epoch, we are getting 7, 9. So just a little bit.
Hello, it's Indu here.
Yes.
Um,
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Irfan. So the number, as Irfan mentioned, there is no hard and fast or a thumb rule to determine the number of layers, hidden layers to be put up. But normally what in the industry we will do it is, there are lots of predefined models are there. For example, ImageNet, AlexNet is there, and VGG16. Those are all the predefined models which have been developed by Google or Facebook. So with respect to the, when you're building a model for the image, the CNN, it is better not to redo from the scratch. I mean, doing it from the scratch might take even months to generate your model or train your model. The way to do it is use a transfer learning. That is, take their predefined model, and then where it will come with the predefined number of layers. Just use that and then run your model, run your image set, and then see how it is working. Then based on top of that, either you can add more layers or remove layers from that, because using millions of images, they have trained the model. VGG16 is one of the very efficient predefined model from Google. So in the current thing, like when you're working on the images, it is better to take the predefined model, add additions to it, and then move on.
Okay. Ma'am, one more question. This is related to activation functions. Irfan?
Yes.
Yes.
This is related to activation function. On the hidden layer, we are using this model ReLU,
Yes.
and output we are using sigmoid.
Yes. Yes.
Can I interchange this one? Can I use the sigmoid also for the activation and ReLU for the output layer?
No. In that output layer, what we need a binary outcome. Like we need to predict in that range of 0 to 1. Like we have in the y value, that is we need to predict 1 or 0. So
Okay.
for predict 1 or 0, we are using sigmoid function here.
No,
For
sigmoid,
ReLU is we are neglecting the negative values. ReLU will
no,
neglect the negative values.
Irfan, I think sigmoid is varying from 0 to 1.
Yes.
That means it's not a binary, right? 0 to 1 means I can have 10 values in between, right?
No. In that outcome, we are just predicting using that threshold value.
Okay.
So in logistic regression, we have used in sigmoid. Why we using? We are just putting in a 0 to 1, and after that 0 to 1, we are using the threshold value to classify the outcome.
If I want to ReLU for a final output activation function, is it possible?
What? I don't understand.
The output layer
Yes.
I can use for ReLU also, right? Not for this
Yeah.
model. Generally, I'm asking.
Yes.
If it is there, what situation I can use it?
What
ReLU as an
situation?
output layer.
Irfan, can I take this?
Yes, yes.
No, actually for the output, this model has been, ANN kind of used more on the classification part. So the classification can be binary or it can be multiple. I can either classify it as A or B. Okay, or I wanted to classify it into a group of A, B, C, or D. So the output layer, the main thing is that if I wanted to have the binary classification, use a sigmoid. As Irfan mentioned, Irfan, can you go into the sigmoid curve in the presentation activation? Yeah, this is the curve. The curve for sigmoid is like that, the top left curve. So it, as he mentioned, it goes from 0 to 1. Okay, but the actual output value you want is either 0 or 1 because it is a binary classification. So what it is using is, so you are defining a threshold value below which it is being considered as 0 and above which it is being considered as 1. Okay, so it's nothing but the probability. The probability, the probability of me for getting one classification is 0.4 and the probability of getting the other classification is 0.6. So 60% what it shows, that is what it will be classified as. So this is the probability of ranging from 0.0 to 1.0. And we are defining a threshold value above which it is being considered as a particular classification and below which you are considered as a particular classification. So here, so majority, as I said, it is being used for classification. I may not be able to use the ReLU part. If you take the ReLU, if it is 0 or less than 0, it is being considered as a 0 point, and it will be actually, the curve will be kind of a very straight one, where after which it goes, where it just takes the value of 1. But can you go to the ReLU part? Yeah. So less than 0 or 0, it is taking the value of 0. And after the 0 to 1, I can actually, it is actually taking the actual value of the x. So answer to your question, probably, okay, yes, I can do it is that where I can, when it is, when the value is greater than x, it is giving the appropriate, the respective value of x. So here also I can mention it, that is after a particular threshold, have it as 1, or below a particular threshold, have it as 0. But the point is, this you can use it, but the point is, depending upon your data. Your data is positive, then you can have this. ReLU also, if you use it as the output thing, it can work depending upon your data type. If your data type is also having a ranging from -negative to positive, where -negative is also can fall into a particular classification, then the ReLU may not work. So it's because if you see the sigmoid, the curve goes on a negative. In the negative, it is not making it as a 0, whereas the ReLU makes negative also a 0. So only if your data point is just positive, or even if you are having negative, I want that to be considered as 0. And behind a particular point of the positive, I want it to be considered as a 1, or below a particular point, I want it to consider it as. In that case of data point, you can use the ReLU as your output. So, but it is very difficult for you to look into the data points of everything and then check whether negative data is not there, or so it is best where your sigmoid itself will be taking care of your data points, whether it is going on a negative or on a positive, because mostly when you are working on the ANN, you will be doing a standard scalar, because it is neuron, it is in between doing some distance calculation. So in the ANN, you have to use a standard scalar. When you are using the standard scalar, you do not know how your data is ranging. Okay, it can use -1 to 1. That is, the data will be placed in the same range for all the columns. So you do not know how internally your data is ranged after you run the standard scalar. So it is very difficult for you to kind of check your data, how it is ranging, and then determining the output of the activation. So by default, if it is classification, you need not have to worry whether the data is in the positive scale or in the negative scale. Put it as sigmoid. So internally it is being taken care. That is one of the reasons that why for a binary classification, you go to sigmoid, and for the multiple classification, you will go for the softmax. So until otherwise you are 100% sure my data is only going on the positive. Even after I do the standard scalar, it is only on the positive. I can use a ReLU as the activation, but mostly you won't, because after standard scalar, nobody goes and checks the data, how it is doing the ranging of the data. Because you have a better option of sigmoid, which is proven in the industry for binary classification. It is being used in the output layer. People go for that.
Okay. One more thing. If I have the more than one class as a classifier in my final output.
Yes, you will be using softmax.
Softmax. Okay. For example, if I need to, I need to classify my input data based on the 10 categories, I need to use for softmax.
Yes. Yeah. Softmax. More than 2.
Okay.
Go for the softmax. And there your loss also will be categorical underscore cross entropy.
Okay.
Here Irfan has mentioned as binary underscore cross entropy. Like here, since binary is either 0 or 1, so here it will be categorical underscore cross entropy.
Oh. Thank you.
Any other doubts? Please get cleared. Our data scientist Indu ma'am has also joined the call. So please get cleared. Whatever doubts you have in this today's session, please get cleared. Or I guess there is no doubts. Is there any doubts which has been produced in chat? No, not in chat as well. So I guess I'm assuming that everyone is clear with this today's session, and all those videos, like it would get uploaded in the screen in our bigdatahandson.com. So here, you could find the videos as usual. Like it would get uploaded maybe in 2-3 hours. We'll upload the video which has happened today, and the final session on CNN, and it would continue tomorrow. Convolution neural networks, it would get continued tomorrow. So again, Indu ma'am, will also join the call tomorrow as well. Our data scientist would also join the call by tomorrow as well. So we shall all meet you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.